Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is Lorenzo here, and for a change it's not a mission, not a day, well it is in fact a day, but we are today looking at the release of point 23. Look here in the bottom right, it's point 23, and as many of you will be in the same boat as me, we have no idea what is actually changed. Well, we have an idea obviously, but we have not looked at it, so let's start the game and take a look at this new version. So we get the Rapier engine, which is a hybrid jet plane and a rocket engine, meaning it can breathe air in the atmosphere and then switch to oxidizer in space. We have performance improvements, we have tweakables in the VAB, and new science. So I propose we send a science mission to see, to check out this this new update. So, oh, look at that new interface on the command pod, a little bit more compact, more readable, and we can hit the right mouse button for more info. Right, this is pretty good. So we can start with the command pod, and one of the big things that were advertised for this patch was in fact the tweakables, the possibility to change the thrust, for instance, on solid rocket boosters. We've just started a new career save, so there's no decoupling. That should make things interesting. As you might recognize, this pod would have this stage would have a very high thrust to weight ratio, so perhaps we can oh wow, look at that. Here we can change the thrust on this solid rocket booster. It's not going to display in actual newtons. Here we have 250 thrust on the engine, and the slider is on a percentage scale. So if I want, say, 80 newtons of thrust, that's not very straightforward. We can easily make it half thrust though, and for now I'm going to put this at a very low number, at 25% thrust. So it's a quarter of what we're used to it being, and of course that means it will fire 4 times as long, because otherwise that would be a bit of a non-feature. If you could just gimp the thrust and it wouldn't burn any longer, well, that's no one would use that, I dare say. So we have this simple rocket here, and let us see how that fares on the launch pad. Just call that Craft 1, why not? Because I was thinking of making a SRB only craft where with nothing but thrust limiting, so varying the thrust on the different SRBs, you could make a interesting mission profile instead of just shooting up as fast and as hard as possible. So let's lift off here. Let's first do some science. We can do some science off the pad. Ask for a crew report from Jebediah Kerman, and we have a little expanded window here. It's a crew report, and we can recover this for 1.5 science and transmit it. You get 100% for the crew report, so let's transmit that. Or we cannot transmit it because we don't have an antenna. Fair enough. So store that report then please, and we will launch. Now these two boosters that we're flying, they are the stock boosters. They don't have their thrust limited. They are performing just as we would expect them to. Fuel is running out, and you can see this context menu has gotten a nice little overhaul. So that sure is nice to see. So solid fuel is about to run out, and then we are good to go for our thrust limited engine. So let's wait for these to burn out. You can see that the middle engine is actually glowing and it's heated, but it's not actually burning. So if you fire this engine, you can see it makes a somewhat smaller sputtering, a smaller engine plume, and we can see we rated that at 65 kilonewtons, so that's about the same as a nuclear engine would give in thrust, and of course correspondingly it burns for a lot longer than these two do. Normally with a mission profile like this we would already have burnt out the booster. We would be a lot higher, but we would have lost a lot more thrust to the atmosphere. So I think this craft, the simple 3 solid booster craft, will go higher this way than it would with 3 full powered SRBs. Of course, it's still an SRB. We can't shut it down. We can't throttle it. It's just varying the amount of thrust from the VAB, and then you're stuck with whatever that is. We can't now alter it to suddenly have more thrust. This will be useful for tweaking tweaking upper stages. Upper stages could now possibly be used with SRBs, for instance, or if you're making a shuttle or some asymmetrical rockets, you can have two of the same engines, but thrust limit one of them to keep the center of thrust behind the center of mass, or indeed the center of the rocket. So this opens up a lot of balancing and, well, it opens up more design possibilities, and that's always a good thing, of course. Now, another thing that tweakables do, and this is something we did not do, you can vary the amount of fuel that's in a tank in the vehicle assembly building. Use for this, I foresee, will be limited, because there is hardly a penalty for bringing more fuel. I mean, you can just burn it. We're not paying for the fuel yet anyway, so if we burn it and it's slightly inefficient, that doesn't really matter. It could be interesting for space planes where you don't bring the oxidizer in the tank that would otherwise be left over. For things like that, that would certainly be interesting. And if we look at our apoapsis here, we are going to reach space with just these 3 solid boosters. That you don't think you do that if you fire it at full strength, but just to be sure, we will check that out after we do some more science reports, because of course we have to no, we don't want to overwrite the existing crew report. We do want to put Jebediah on an EVA and get an EVA report from him, so we'll keep this as well. EVA reports are now also 100% transmissible. This stands to reason, because of course an EVA is just a crew report from within a spacesuit. So that wasn't the case, but now it is, so that's good, of course. I'm going to deploy the parachute and fast forward time until we're back at the launch pad, so we can have a look at our new yes, we can physics warp that down, no worries. So we can have a look at our new science archive window. And we should be hitting the well, the thick part of the atmosphere where we get some re-entry effects. Probably going to reduce the time warp now, otherwise the parachute is going to snap me in half. Don't have any mods installed on 0.23 install yet, otherwise this would probably be rather deadly with the deadly re-entry plugin. Fortunately, none of that exists in this install. After doing this first look video, I think I'm going to see if my save game from a mission a day actually ports over, or if everything breaks, if the plugins work, if the mods work. That's all for a later time. First, let's finish this first look at the 0.23 update. So if that parachute would just deploy, I can then time warp down to the rest of the ground, so we get some science, and then we can have a look at those beautiful archives. Those should be useful, because if you've been watching my Mission a Day series, you know that when I do science, I oftentimes forget that several pieces of science had already been done before, and the science archive should help with that and help you identify goals, where to send your probes or your Kerbals next, so that you can get all the science that's in the game, or just get all the science, period, why not. So parachuting to the ground here, and then we can go have a look. And here we are landed. We can recover the vessel, and that should give us a nice amount of science. There we go, 15 science gained. Let's hightail it to the R&D department. And indeed, we have here the familiar looking science tree. Let's research this. It's for 10 points, and well, put 10 more points in this, why not? Not enough science to research the node. Oh, it costs 20, I was looking at my screen, right. So we can't research anything else, but what is important is the science archives here. Wow, this is pretty. Look, we have Werner von Kerman, of course a throwback to Werner von Braun, who designed first the Nazis' rockets and then most of the American rockets. And we have here an overview of all the celestial bodies and the science that we did for it. So if we go to Kerbin, we get experiments, we got one crew report, a crew report from Launchpad, an EVA report from Kerbin's upper atmosphere, and I imagine that these lists will fill up. We've got a lot of research on these subjects. Excellent! Situations flying high. So that's EVA report from Kerbin's upper atmosphere. Great, and then you can go for the moon, for Minmus, go for Eve or one of its moons. That actually looks right good. Jewel has a lot of moons, as I well know. Landed on Pol in my other series, and Val recently. That's currently uploading. And the Sun, of course, the Sun has research goals as well. So this is all new, looking good. I'm looking forward to filling all of this up. And that brings us, of course, to more features. Let's have a look if we can make a liquid fueled rocket with a great. Oh wait, no, we need a new craft. I want to test the liquid fuel scaling as well, those sliders. So right click here. Oh look, this works very intuitively. You can just grab the sliders and vary the amount of oxidizer. I would have liked a type bar where you can just hit the number that you want to, where you can type in the number of fuels that you want to have. But this slider works fluently as it needs to. If you were not particularly smart, you might launch a rocket like this. Look, can we overthrust this? No, it's 100% or less. So some haphazard changes, and that probably will make for a very non-functioning rocket. So we have all the fuel we want, except we didn't bring any oxidizer. So that's running out now, and Jebediah will not have a great time. So this is what I meant when I said that I couldn't see much use indeed for limiting rocket fuel in these rocket engines, in these rocket tanks, but the thrust, and of course for airplanes it's a different story altogether. Then depleting the tank of oxidizer like I did now could indeed be useful. The Rapier engine, a hybrid jet engine and rocket engine. You can have a quick look at that, but for that we need a new save, a sandbox save, where we have access to all the parts, obviously. You can go to the spaceplane hangar and whip up a quick aircraft. Aircraft are not really my forte, but I'll try and make something that does not immediately horrendously explode. So I reckon we should be good with a... well, we need a rocket tank really, because we are going to do a hybrid. We're going to do a hybrid, so we need oxidizer, but not a whole lot of it. So this is the Rapier engine. That's great. So put that in the back there. Oh wait, we might even just launch this like a rocket. So we're going to put it like this. All that we have to do is add some air intakes, because we do need it to take in air. We are going to... let's have a look. Where are the air intakes? You can tell I'm not particularly great at building this stuff. I'm going to do it in the vehicle assembly building, because I know my way around the vehicle assembly building in this crazy plane symmetry that doesn't work at all for me. So if you want planes, go elsewhere. Scott Manley does a good series with, well, he uses a space shuttle analog in his Interstellar Quest series. That's pretty good. I, for now, am sticking with rockets. I know how they work, and I know my way around them. So all I need here is some... oh, I need the big ones. I'm going to put some struts here and put intakes on that, if that works. So see, there we go, works fine. Put that a little bit higher up so they are over the pad. Put some control surfaces on the back of the rocket, and of course a launch clamp. One should suffice. And now we are going to tweak the tank to not bring as much oxidizer, because we will be using a lot of the fuel with the intake air, in fact. So we bring less oxidizer and see how that goes. Name that Rapier, launch that, and you can probably already see that this will pave the way for a lot of space planes, because now you can take off from Kerbin, fly through the atmosphere, activate your Rapier rocket mode. Oh. I might have missed something. probably, I think these rapiers will need a little bit of time to ramp up as well. So we're going to first light the engine and then release the launch clamps. So the thrust is building, it needs a little bit of time because it's a jet engine. And automatic switching. It's automatic switching, so whenever it feels like it needs to use its oxidizer, it will. And now we're going to release it, and it's going to climb upwards. Now we're using air from these intakes, and when we look at the fuel, you can see that indeed it is only resource tags, and it's only using liquid fuel, not oxidizer. We didn't bring a full tank of oxidizer because obviously then we would have too much at the end of the run. So this way the plane is a little bit lighter. The quality plane will say that it's clearly it's a nimble hybrid space plane rocket. We'll see how this particular one is going to be landing. Let's proceed at this angle. I'm not sure if I'm imagining it, but I think the performance is a little bit smoother than we're used to. Could be that it's a little bit optimized or a placebo effect. We usually have a little bit of stutter recording to play like this, but that could also be due to just having a fresh save. This plane I made is flying horrendously, and it might in fact not go to space today. I'm not sure about that. Well, electric charge is depleting. These engines do not make electric charge. Surprise run call. The thing I made in 5 seconds is not quite a space-worthy plane. Near it. In fact, so you're going to have to take my word for it that should this get up to exo-atmospheric heights, the engine will from the tank and function as a rocket, and in the atmosphere it functions as a jet. So that adds some versatility to the design process, again just as tweakables do, so that's all good. I think I've covered about all that the new update has to offer. So tweakables, rapier engine, new science mechanics, new science archives, so that's all very good and wonderful. Basically it's an update that improves performance and gives you more options to design your craft, which basically is what half of this game is about. So enjoy playing with it. I hope you didn't get stuck in any horrendous server crashes. So far there haven't been any, but it's always a little bit hairy with these new updates. I'm going to have a look to see how well this works with my old save, with the mods and plugins that I like to use, and what I'm going to bring to you tomorrow for a mission a day, of course. Until then, have fun with it yourself, and I'll see you tomorrow. This was Lorenzo. Goodbye.